What's up, guys? My name is Colby Davis. I'm the owner of Northside Gym. We're in the Woodlands, Texas, north of Houston, and we're coming at you with our first YouTube episode. Today, we're gonna go over some key things that you wanna learn whenever you're going through your workouts to maximize your progress. All right, guys, so this is the Nautilus glute drive. It's one of my favorite glute bridge machines, okay? We're gonna go over a couple what to do, what not to do on this machine, because you can do things really good and it hits really well, or you could not do so good and it hits really bad. So, first thing is going to be your foot placement, okay? So when you're placing your feet, doesn't really matter how wide or narrow they are. You can always still hip thrust the movement. What matters a little more is your foot positioning a little farther forward on the foot plate, or a little farther back. You want to make sure that if you are 5'7" and over, that your toes are very close to the edge of the foot plate. And then if you're 5'6" and below, you kind of want to back your feet off an inch or two, depending on your height and how long your legs are, to make sure you get a good hip thrust, okay? So if your legs are too far forward, you're gonna feel it in your hamstrings a little more, and you're not gonna be able to hip thrust very well. If you have your feet too far back, you're gonna hit your quads more. You're not gonna be able to get to that hip thrust either. So next, we're gonna go over our belt placement, okay? So once you get your feet in the right position, you're gonna inch your way down on this back pad, okay? You're gonna have your butt slightly towards the end of the back pad. You're not gonna have your butt off this seat, okay? You're gonna make sure that your butt slightly off the edge of it, right? Which is gonna put this belt in a really nice position under your belly button and over your hips, okay? And then you tighten that belt like this, okay? If you have a small waist, all right, don't put the buckle right there. That's where fat people go, okay? So you're gonna make sure that if you have a little tiny waist, you go to this second buckle, right? And then you tighten all the way. This should be snug before you start, okay? That's a huge position that people get misconstrued, right? Secondly, whenever you're squeezing up, okay, you wanna make sure you don't have too much pressure in your stomach. Okay, if you have too much pressure in your stomach, then it kind of cuts off your airway, and then you have a hard time breathing, and then you pass out, and then that's always a bad thing. So you wanna make sure that you have this belt like over your hips, and as soon as you push up and you clench your glutes, you feel it. All the load is in your glutes, okay? All right, so number 3 is the range of motion for the glute drive, okay? So whenever you hip thrust up, okay, it's not necessarily as high as the machine will go, okay? I can bring this machine way up here, right? You don't need to come way up here. If you're already squeezing your glute right here with your hips a little lower, that's fine, okay? Also, when you're coming down, you don't want to go too low, okay? You like go way down here, you're kind of relaxing. You're not necessarily hitting the bottom, relaxing down here, but your muscle is no longer contracting. You're just kind of sitting on your quads, pushing into your feet, right? You want to stay a little higher than that, okay? This range is what I call the pain range, okay? It is not as low as a machine will go. It's not as high as the machine will go. It's right below that and right above that. So it's right here where you get good activation and you squeeze through, all right? So you have a full rep range is what I usually do. I tell my clients, you do a full one, then a half one, okay? Especially on glutes where it's kind of hard to activate and feel. So you find your pain range to start, and then you squeeze up as high as you can in that pain range. You go halfway in that pain range. Then you come back up. Then you go all the way down in that pain range. And then you go up, okay? Or you can start at the bottom, squeeze halfway up, come down, go all the way up, okay? Either one works, but that's how I like to teach the glute drive. Okay, you could just do a normal rep where you go all the way down in that pain range, you come all the way up, which is great too, especially when you're trying to do heavy weight, right? But just stay in that range. Next, we're gonna go over our side bench seated hamstring curl. All right, so we're gonna talk about how to get this machine set up for your height, okay? So this back plate is a super important position, okay? Let's say I'm like 5'10", right? I like this back pad to be on like a 3, maybe even a 4 if you're like a little shorter, okay? The shorter you are, the more you're gonna want this back pad up, okay? So that basically your hips are on the butt pad and your hamstring is slightly hanging off this pad, okay? So when I sit down, well, let me put it on the right adjustment. I'm on like a, let's try that at a 4. Sit here, put my legs up. See, my hamstring is like slightly hanging off this pad, okay? So you wanna make sure that also your knees right here kind of line up to this hinge point, okay? So this reenacts the leg curl, okay, when you push down, right? Secondly, you wanna make sure that this leg pad is in the right position to where it's not on your heel of your foot or it's not too high, it's like on your calf, okay? It's gonna be kind of in between. So right now I have it on a 3. You can adjust it by twisting this handle right here. It's a little old school. It's not like a pull pin, it's just a twist lever. And then you maneuver it up and down like this, okay? So put it on a 3, good to go. All right. Now, with this model of leg curl, this thigh pad is, it's a little old school, okay? So most thigh pads have this pull pin. Whenever you pull it out, you have different notches in this rod that'll lock you into place, right? So you like basically go like that, you push this in and it locks into place, but this one does not do that, see? It still moves, okay? That's why you have this lever over here, you twist to make sure you lock it into place, all right? And then you're ready to go. Now that you're set up in the machine, okay? You wanna make sure that this pad is above your heel, below your calf muscle, okay? Your toes are pointed up, right? So you're kind of flexing on your shins, okay? I like to push myself with these handles into my back pad, okay? And then squeeze down like this, okay? I like to hold it, I like to find that pain range, right? So this is about as far as I can go back. There's no reason to kick this thing back way back there, okay? You just come back as far as you can squeeze, okay? That's your pain range. You come up, you stretch as much as you can in that pain range, which is still right here. You see how my knees are still bent, right? You never want to come up as high as the machine will go. There's no reason to stretch that much, okay? I still feel my hamstring engaged right here. The machine is probably like 2 or 3 inches from maxing out on the stack. So make sure whenever you're here, you hold it for a second and then you squeeze back. Try to find your pain range. And then also, like on the glute drive, you can do halves, so you can come all the way down, halfway up, all the way down, full way up. Good, halfway down, and then all the way, okay? Or you can just do a regular full rep, okay? Just make sure you don't go all the way out of that pain range. Now, after you're doing your set, you're like, oh man, this is super hard, oh my God. This is crazy, right? That's a great angle. It is pretty crazy. But when you're done, you're gonna get like, oh shit, my hamstrings burn really bad, right? And you're gonna start freaking out, right? I've seen people like, this is a death trap. Don't worry, okay? Just undo this. Just do exactly what you did in opposite fashion. Just undo the lever and then push it up with your knee, lock it into place and get out, okay? No reason to panic. All right, so this is a side back leg extension, okay? So if you want some meaty quads, make sure, like that, make sure you do your leg extensions, okay? Not every day, but every other day probably. How you would set this machine up, okay? You're gonna make sure that your back pad is set to the appropriate height. So you're gonna do as long as your leg is, you know, so if you're like 5'10" and above, you should probably be at like a 5 or higher, 5, 6, all the way to 8 if you're super tall. Or if you're super short, you're like 5'1", 5'2", you're gonna scooch this pad all the way up to like a 2 or a 1, okay? So you put that on a 5 for me. Secondly is your shin pad. Just make sure that whenever you're sitting on this machine, that shin pad is right above the ankle, okay? You don't want it to be on the ankle because it'll make it super uncomfortable because it'll kind of like push the foot forward. It'll push it down, okay? So it'll be like this. Pushing your shoes down like that, you don't want that, okay? You want to make sure that the pad, or you don't want to go too high, right? Where it's like on your shin a lot and you feel a lot of load, almost like you're gonna get a shin splint. You don't want that either. Make sure it's a little lower than that, okay? Right there. My setting is like on a 3, okay? So if you're short, it's gonna be on like a 1. If you're tall, then it might be a little farther down, okay? Because your limbs are taller or longer. Also, if you have a problem keeping your hips down, okay? Which we'll go over that a little later, but you have this belt that I so generously provided, okay? This does not come factory to this machine. So it's only specific to Northside. I kind of got this from another gym that I used to train at, Texas Iron Republic. Shout out to Tyler Williamson. He used to have these things all over the gym, and I loved them, especially when I trained with my clients and they had a problem keeping their hips down when they do this exercise. So we just strap them right up to the seat and they're good to go. So first we identify where the pain range is on this machine, okay? So when you kick up all the way, it's where your legs are fully extended, locked out position, okay? I like to point my toes out, okay? Not up like that, but out. You feel the quads stretch a little more, you get a better squeeze. And then when you come down, it stretches a lot when you have your toes pointed down, okay? So that pain range is about an inch or two before you hit the stack, right? And then when you come up, it's right where those legs are locked. You don't have to over kick it, bring it way up there, no reason to. And you don't have to put this machine down, okay, to take a break during the set. You need to make sure you always have tension on that quad, okay? Some people like to barely bend their legs when it gets real hard and they're like, oh shit, they keep kicking like this, right? That doesn't count, right? You need to go all the way down, stretch that quad at the bottom to make sure you get a little higher on the quad, right? Get a good stretch, and then squeeze up. Make sure you get that teardrop right there, okay? This is how it should look when you're using the machine with the belt, okay? My hips stay down relatively easy, okay? Because that belt's holding them tight, right? Now, if I take this belt off, okay? You should make sure you are firmly grasping these handles at all times, okay? Because what happens is it starts to get hard, just like right now, I kind of got a little burny. Whenever you come up, you start going like this, like that, okay? Hopping out of that chair. You gotta make sure you hold yourself down. And if you can't, use a seatbelt to make sure your hips stay down so you get a full stretch and a full extension. All right guys, so up next we have the hack squat, okay? This is supposed to emulate the squat formation movement, okay? The only adjustment you have for this piece is the foot plate, okay? When you walk up to the machine, you wanna make sure that the foot plate is in a 90 degree with the back pad, okay? It almost forms like a check mark, if you will. Right now, this back plate, or the foot plate, is a little too high, so we're gonna have to pull it down. So all you do is pull this pin right here and then bring it down a little bit, kind of like it like that, okay? So there could be one more adjustment if you want, okay? These bands back here we use to reverse band the hack squat, okay? Sometimes when you have like knee injuries or knee problems, you want to kind of give yourself a little bit of help at the bottom to help even out the strength curve, okay? Because it's really, really heavy at the bottom and it's lighter at the top. So what some people do is they'll wrap a band around this pipe right here, okay? Just like that, okay? And then they'll hook it to this lanyard right here, okay? So it almost acts as like a bungee, okay? So when you're at the bottom, the strength curve evens out, so it's pretty light at the bottom, all right? But for right now, we'll take that off. I don't like using that much, only when I need to, okay? When my knees are hurting and stuff. So, yeah, that's the only thing. When you're using this also, make sure that you get on it and you unlock from here, okay? You bring these handles in, okay? And then you go down, all right? Don't just push up on it and then expect to go down, because you're gonna get stopped by the stopper, all right? So handles in, come down, back up, all right? So as far as your foot placement goes, you need to make sure that your feet are shoulder width apart, okay? There are instances where I do like a little more narrow stance for like drop sets and stuff. You're trying to like burn out your quads a little more, get a little bit more outer sweep. I would bring my feet in a little bit. Or if I'm trying to activate my glutes a little bit more, I would open my stance a little wider, but generally I like to keep them pretty shoulder width apart, okay? Now, since this foot plate is at a 90 degree to the back pad, you wanna make sure that your feet are relatively higher on the foot plate. You don't wanna have your feet super low on this foot plate, because then when you come up on this pad, you're gonna almost be in like a sissy squat formation, okay? Your heels are gonna come up, right? You're gonna put your foot where when you squat, your heels don't come up and your toes don't come up either. Your foot stays planted, okay? So where my feet are, it's probably a little bit above that second yellow line, all right? Last thing we'll talk about is range of motion, okay guys? So with the hack squat, you wanna find your pain range, okay? It's not as low as you can go, okay, down here, and it's not as high as you can go up here. It's right in between that. So knees slightly bent, that's as high as you go, okay? As low as you go is about right here, where your legs are about making a 90 degree angle towards the foot plate, okay? You don't need to go lower than that. When you go lower than that, it dips into your lower back. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on your knees, and you can kind of hang out right here. You can kind of rest, give yourself a break, and then you gotta push through that barrier to try to get back up. And there's a lot of tension on your joints that you don't need, okay? So let's make sure whenever you perform the hack squat, you stay in that pain range, okay? Knees slightly bent at the top, come down, 90 degree at the bottom, right? That's all you gotta think about. Slightly bent, 90 degree, go up. All right, guys, this is our first of many episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love your feedback, so please like, subscribe, comment below. We'll see you on the next one.